Okay. Samuel's question. He says, I was a regular lifter before lockdown, shut down my gym for 6 months. After I resumed my leg workouts in the gym when it reopened, I got super sore for days after, just like a brand new lifter. So he had DOMS, something that a lot of us experience when we get into that. That got me thinking, if the majority of gains for new lifters, and there are assumptions in this, I just want to throw this asterisk out there right now. There are assumptions that we'll discuss in just a bit. But he says, if the majority of gains for new lifters come from neuromuscular connections versus increased muscle mass, why do our muscles become so sore after a lifting session? Aren't sore muscles a symptom of torn muscles? And do our muscles build themselves back but maintain the same size until the neuromuscular gains are maxed out? Back in March, I could have performed a decently tough deadlift, and it sounds like now he's struggling with that. So first of all, I feel you, Samuel. All of us go through this. This is pretty normal. And I guess there's probably a few main questions that we want to cover. The first one, why does strength training make me sore? And I know that sounds probably silly, but diving into the details, I feel like it's a good prerequisite for this conversation, right, Chad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So soreness, or what we refer to as delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS, is just like you pointed out, it's due to actual muscle damage. So in this case, it's muscular microtrauma. And it's not limited just to the muscles either. It can actually affect the connective tissue to some extent. In the literature, and you might often see this just in other places, it's EIMD, so exercise-induced muscular damage. But basically, it's just damage. That is part of what spurs growth. So even with the neural adaptations actually leading the charge, muscle damage still occurs. Anytime we do anything that's novel or unaccustomed, that will probably it's going to inspire some level of fatigue. Often enough, it'll inspire some level of minor muscle damage, which will in turn lead to delayed onset muscle soreness. Also, these neuromuscular adaptations that you're talking about take place concurrently with muscular adaptations. So it's not just a matter of how well the brain communicates with the muscles. There's also things taking place in the muscles. This happens at the same time. I don't know that you could extricate one from the other, not tidally. I don't even think it's possible. So it's, I think there's a little confusion here. There's a confusion here on a few matters. And one is that DOMS can happen at any stage of lifting. Again, if it's unfamiliar, and that is you haven't adapted to it, perhaps you're evolving things too quickly, progressing them too quickly, or these are just adaptations that have reversed. Maybe you were a good lifter. Maybe you could do a decently tough deadlift. You can't do one now. So it shouldn't be surprising that trying to do one is basically an unfamiliar activity that can actually cause or inspire muscle damage.
Chad, this also extends to even just doing an exercise differently, an athlete that's just doing leg press versus switching to squats. Even though it seems like it's the same motion, it actually can be, you're probably going to be very sore in different ways.
Yeah. So in that case, it's not familiar. It's quite familiar, but some aspect of that is novel or unaccustomed. It's a little bit different than you were doing it before. I say this mostly tongue in cheek. I don't really mean this, but I think the only possible solution for bypassing muscle soreness and moving yourself through to what we as cyclists pursue, which is improvements in maximal strength, is to never perform more than 3 reps. And I'm going to warn you right now, this is going to be a slow trajectory. I want you to go in and I want you to grab the bar and do 3 deadlifts. And you can do 5 sets of it. Give yourself the requisite 4 or 5 minutes in between sets and go back and do another 3. Come back next workout, slap some 2.5s on each side. It's going to take you a little time, but you will probably never experience DOMS.
But the objective is not to avoid DOMS, right, Chad?
No, it's absolutely not.
It's part of the process, right?
It is and it isn't. I mean, it's going to happen because we outpace our adaptive capabilities at times. It's just part of the learning process. You don't know until you do it, right? So it's not a necessary part, and we'll elaborate that on a bit, but it's a pretty common occurrence.
Yeah. Let's go into the neuromuscular part, the question of what does neuromuscular mean in different phases as a lifter.
This is where I think most of the misunderstanding is with this particular question. So initial gains are neuromuscular in nature, but simultaneously some increases in mass are either, the foundation is being laid, they're not far behind. And this is tied very strongly to the type and the volume of lifting that you're doing. It's in a way, it's similar to simply riding lots. And so if the intensity and or the duration are sufficient, so the volume is enough, even just riding your bike at 50 or 60% for many hours will lead to increases in this fiber size in your slow twitch muscles, what's termed cross-sectional area. So it may not seem like you're doing any work, but you're doing something and you're doing enough of it that it does inspire muscular changes. And all the while, there will be some neuromuscular activity going on too. So let's look at let's compare the beginning lifter, and then we'll also relate this to cyclists. So yes, initially strength gains are largely neural. They're largely neuromuscular. So the neural connections, from the brain to the muscles, and we'll see that in the form of a lot of things. The movement patterns, for instance, will improve. Your coordination will improve. So try to do a single leg squat. Having never done one before, it'll be pretty sloppy. A few weeks later, might look pretty good, and then you can start loading it more heavily, whatever. But initially, you're establishing proper movement patterns and reinforcing good coordination. You'll get you'll improve the number of fibers that you recruit and the synchronicity of those fibers. So these fibers are already there, they just aren't really in action, and they don't really know how to play nice together. So you're going to reinforce those aspects. You'll decrease, and we talked about this just a few podcasts ago, you'll decrease the inhibition. So, when your quads want to extend the knee, but your hamstrings haven't really figured out how to let go so that your quads can do this unimpeded, this is something that improves with repetition. And by the same token, or in a similar manner, non-relevant fibers. So all these fibers that may be kind of supporting the movement or they're de-recruited, so to speak, because the fibers that do the movement have gotten so good at it that they don't need assistance from others, and which kind of leads to a lower cost form of support from these stabilizers and these synergists. So you just get good at moving. But as you're doing this, some mass is almost unavoidable. And it's especially so if you plan to eventually move on to heavy lifts. So simply through repetition, and repetition is a necessary component in order to achieve proficiency. And that repetition is likely going to yield a little bit of hypertrophy, a little bit of increased cross-sectional area, a little increase in lean mass. But that proficiency is absolutely requisite prior to heavy lifting. You got to be very good at this before you're going to put a bunch of weight on your back or try to pick it up off the ground or press it or whatever it's going to be. Did you want to say something, Amber?
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of the inhibition, that's huge. If you can, if oftentimes we carry more tension in our muscles than we actually need. And if you can learn to relax that through inhibition and just that neuromuscular motor pattern training, it's a huge thing, not only in life in general, but also on the bike. If you're not having to recruit as much muscle, if you're recruiting more muscle than you actually need, it's a waste of energy. So this is a really cool thing too.
That's why we feel like Bambi on ice a lot of the times when we try to do something fresh and new, because we haven't quite figured that out yet. Like sprinting is a great example. Every year when I start working on sprinting, I just feel awkward and I don't feel fluid. I don't feel smooth and effective. But with practice, I then figure it out. So once again, to this point that, this is a part of the process. For all of the movements that we're doing. And it happens all the time. Like we have to, these aren't things that are sticky and just last forever, in the sense that, if you've lifted hard in the past, in this specific scenario, lifted hard in the past, now struggling with it, it makes sense because your body has to keep up on those sort of things. If it doesn't, then it starts to lose it. So yeah, Chad, is there anything else you want to cover before we go on to the next question?
Yeah. So one last point is that when we look at cyclists in particular, we're always talking about neural adaptations because cyclists are so intent, and rightly so, on avoiding increases in mass, whether it's lean or otherwise. What we are targeting though is increases in maximum strength. So we want to be stronger. We just don't want to cart around any extra weight in the process of achieving that or being able to do it. So that's what we want, but you still have to recognize that progression, just like it is with endurance training, is still part of the picture. And not to use strength training terminology, but there has to be a process of anatomical adaptation. So this training is what's necessary to, again, create that proficiency. And it is a combination of the neuromuscular adaptations we talked about, and often enough increases in cross-sectional area, bigger muscles, and a few things that go along with that. But those things have to be in place in order for you to safely and productively transition to maximum strength training, where you can do those low rep, very heavy lifts that bring about the changes that we target as cyclists. And then, after that, you can move into maintenance. That's a whole other story, but it has to happen in a particular order, or you're setting yourself up for either a reduced return on your training investment, or you're probably going to injure yourself. And I can speak from experience on that matter.
Yeah. Nate, did you have something you wanted to add? I couldn't tell.
Nope.
Okay, cool. The other question with this, and this is a big one, and we've talked about this before, us cyclists many times get attached to, if there's not discomfort attached to something or something else like that, then we feel that it's easy to feel that there's no progress involved. And that's a bad connotation to have. Yes, progress comes through discomfort, but progress isn't always productively gained through discomfort, right? And there's like a big difference between productivity and everything else. So the question of, is soreness required to get improvement from strength training? Because a lot of cyclists have this thought, and before you jump into this, Chad, where it's like, you've seen this and you've called it out so many times, where cyclists are like, I lift early in the off season or the base phase, and it really blows me out. It's really tough. And then after that, I got my strength work done for the year, and I ride that wave for the rest of the year. It's like, it's good when it makes me sore. And then after that, I keep lifting and I'm no longer sore. So I don't need to keep lifting, because clearly, since I'm not sore, it's not doing anything, is the assumption. So do you want to challenge that, I assume?
Yeah. Well, first let's talk about the question, right? Is soreness required for you to improve in strength training, and for that strength training to benefit, in our case, being faster, better cyclists? Delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, indicates excess, full stop. That's it. So it's not bad. It's not good. It just says you have outpaced your adaptive capabilities. You went too fast, you overdid it, and now you're going to pay the price for it. And it's typically not going to last very long, 1, 2, maybe 3 days. But that's simply how it works. And it's funny, and this happens to me dang near every time I go on a trip where we don't have a car, or it's just a metropolitan sort of area. So you do a heck of a lot of walking. But we're endurance cyclists. I do run a bit, or I did. I ride my bike a ton, but if I go walk around city streets for 2 or 3 hours, and I do that for a couple of days in a row, even on that second day, I'm already noticing I'm sore in interesting places. My low legs are sore, my feet are sore, my ankles are sore, because again, it's unaccustomed, it's unfamiliar. So when you add strength training, what's that?
Nate.
We were all thinking it. I saw your smiles.
No, I was actually just thinking, I have had this, like, I love the comment, the interesting places. I'm like, I have totally experienced that, where you're like, I didn't even know I had a muscle there, and it hurts. Like, what is that?
Sorry, Chad. I was just joking.
That's okay. I know. I know you say it with love. Okay, so what I'm trying to get across is that overdoing it is not necessary to attain improvement. It's simply not. And improvement is positive adaptations. We can have adaptation in both directions. I mean, we can also stagnate. So if we're looking for positive adaptation, the common knowledge, I don't know, people seem to think that they have to overdo it. They have to push themselves to a point where it hurts. And that whole no pain, no gain idea, I'm here to tell you, is often nonsense. Not all the time, because it is absolutely necessary sometimes, certainly not all the time. And you could almost tie this back to that minimum effective dose that seems to be a real popular topic with us lately, and that DOMS is clear evidence that you've exceeded it. Again, if the minimum effective dose is this, and I go a little beyond it, probably going to deal with, to some degree, a little bit of delayed onset muscle soreness, at least in the context of resistance training.
Oh, sorry, Nate, please.
The key thing that I heard, which especially when you lift and ride a bike, the phrase in the gym you should be thinking of is stimulate, don't annihilate. I used to, in college, just try to annihilate everything, right? So you're like, oh, I can't walk out of the gym. I can't pick my arms up. You do drop sets down to like 20 pounds on bench press until you do it. Leave some reps in the tank. Like, you laugh at this, Amber, but I'm a dude, so this is like ego-driven weightlifting, and this is what we did in college. That was the thought. Like, I'm gonna do 9 sets of chest, and they're all gonna go until I can't lift my arms up.
But I hate to do it.
Some reps. What? Yeah.
But I hate to do it, but I'm going to make fun of CrossFit again. And I think this is
You don't
this is
hate to
part
do
of
it.
this is part of why CrossFit kind of fell apart. I mean, they got kicked in the gut, or wherever they got kicked, because this was kind of what was promoted, whether it was intentional or not. I mean, you look up any of the workouts, and one that springs to mind is Murph, where you wear a weight vest and you do an amazing amount of pull-ups and push-ups and some running. It's absolutely brutal. People knew going into it that their arms would be useless for probably the better part of a week. I mean, 3 or 4 days afterwards, because it was
T-Rex
so
arms.
severe. Yeah, I mean, it just hurts you so bad. But they're telling themselves, this will make me stronger. This will make me, it'll definitely make you tougher, but this will make me a stronger athlete, a better CrossFitter, a better athlete in general.
Yeah. One thing I want to add to this that has absolutely nothing to do with strength training, but you mentioned minimum effective dose enough that I have to say it. 400 Watts Club. Everyone should check them out on Instagram. They've done some incredible illustrations. There's a very talented illustrator of Chad in particular, Nate and Keegan with their challenge too. The 370 watt challenge. There you go. Nate's drinking. But he needs, please, 400 Watts Club, please design the shirt of Chad with minimum effective dose and whether it's a shot of something or something. We need that shirt. I'm going to buy it. So yeah, exactly. Minimum effective dose. It'd be so good. So
If you like this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up.
if you didn't like this video, you can give it a thumbs down, but let us know what you would have done differently in the comments below.
If you want to see more of these videos, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to become a faster cyclist, check out TrainerRoad.com.
Do it.
If you think I have better hair than Jonathan, give it a thumbs up. If not, leave a comment.
My hair is better than his.